A very good evening, everyone, and a very warm welcome on behalf of Flow Kanpur and Flow Bhubaneswar to the event today. You can be your own Lakshmi. The program today is designed to teach you basic financial concepts and how to manage your personal finances. This event is extremely close to my heart as I feel that financial knowledge and management of personal wealth and finances is something every woman should be doing. It is ironic that even though the role of a woman has undergone a sea change compared with the yesteryears, and today women are standing tall and playing a major role in various arenas like politics, defense, sports, etc., most of us still leave the money matters to the men of the family. For centuries, women have been the karta dharta of managing household finances and the sole holders of tijori ki chabi. But when it comes to managing family wealth and investments, most women are clueless. We at Flow believe that this needs to change and family finance is no longer a gender-specific job. You need to make your own financial plans. You need to know about your investments. And while it may seem scary, trust me, once you get a hang of it and start doing it, it is not that difficult. We're extremely grateful to have with us today Mr. Swaroop Mohanty, the CEO of Mirae Assets, who's going to help us understand and learn about managing and investing money. I would now like to invite Dharitri Patnaik, Chairperson Flow Bhubaneswar, to introduce Mr. Mohanty.
Thank you, Aarti. It gives me immense pleasure to welcome Mr. Swaroop Mohanty. Swaroop Mohanty is the Chief Executive Officer of Mirae Asset Investment Managers India Private Limited. He has over 24 years of experience in the field of financial services, including over 17 years of experience in the mutual fund industry in India. He is overall responsible for the India Asset Management Company. He joined Mirae Asset in 2011 as the head of sales and was elevated to the position of the Chief Executive Officer in 2016. Prior to this assignment, Mr. Mohanty has been associated with AMCs like Kotak, among others in the sales function. His main area of work has been developing and distribution network and a subsequent investor base for the organization, which also includes some of the large corporates, institutions, and family offices in the country. Mr. Mohanty holds a degree in PGDBM and has a BCom honors. Apart from his passion for mutual funds, Mr. Mohanty shares a very keen interest in travel and music. He has a large collection of vinyl records and prefers the analog form of music. His deep interest in wildlife takes him from one wildlife sanctuary to the other. Mr. Mohanty has appeared in various speaking forums across the industry and does take keen interest in spending time visiting various educational institutes in an attempt to increase financial literacy. Welcome, Mr. Mohanty. And also, I would like to add here that we in Orissa are very proud of your achievements.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Dharitri. Such a pleasure seeing you. For everybody, Dharitri and I went to the same school. I'm much older than her, just clarifying. But Aarti, thank you so much for this opportunity. It's an absolute honor to be here amongst such dignified women. And I hope I do justice to this incredible subject. And I have a small presentation, so let me just share that with you and we'll talk along as we speak and share our views. Just one request to everybody, because this is not my forte, this is your forte, and I'm trying to get into your world. I think some of the things that Aarti said have already made my job very easy, and I wish we did more of that, and that's something which we try to explore in the next 15-20 minutes. So just the one request: if people agree, fine. If people disagree, please voice them out, then I go back learning. And then it's always better that we share our views and it ends up in a better way. So, I mean, this is a very large topic. You can be your own Lakshmi, and then we'll, at the end of 20 minutes, sort of say or decide whether this is correct or not. Because like Aarti said, at the beginning, the role of women is just evolving, and look at it. And what she said is pretty correct. Because in earlier times, the primary earning member was the man, and then the primary homemaker was the lady of the house. But the lady has graduated to being the earning member of the house, along being the primary homemaker of the house. Unfortunately, the man has not graduated to doing anything in homemaking, and that goes for myself also. Between me and my wife, it's pretty clear that she takes care of everything, and I sort of do what I can do, and that's very little. But that's something which is so good to see. And when you look at it globally, I personally believe that the journey of the woman in the society defines the what can I say, the level of the country. And when you compare women across the world, and I'm very proud to say that women in India sort of stand out in this respect. The capability, the acumen, the proficiency to do everything along with managing the house is up there. And all credit to women that I'm there, that are there in front of me today. Just a small word before I start. I understand that the women in front of me are not the typical women that comes across. So the presentation I will make is assuming that we are at a certain level and we'll carry it on from there. This is not a basic thing that we start from. So just bear with me on that one, because when we look at women, and forgive me for getting into your side and trying to understand a woman and laying down some things. The caveat here is this only comes from the investing perspective. I'm not trying to judge or get into that massive sort of universe called the universe of women. But traditionally, when you look at women, these things are very true, and all of us have sort of seen it and have gone through enough experience to say that women are predominantly savers, and that role has been with every mom in everybody's houses and every wife in everybody's house, that the sort of what can I say, the emergency money always is with the lady of the house. And they have always seen that tomorrow part, have been very disciplined in this approach to lead to that financial stability of a family. And that's something which whichever person says can be left unsaid, because there is so much more to that which the woman does on that part of keeping the budget of the family intact. In fact, the great Robert Kiyosaki says that if there were more finance ministers globally who are women, maybe the budgets would be surpluses rather than the deficit budgets that we see globally. Then the next aspect which women bring to the table is absolutely correct, which is discipline. If I give you my house as an example, between me and my wife, it's a very different process. My wife is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. And like a true man, I can go from 1 to 240 to 46 to 76 and back to 2. That's the way we think. But when it comes to you, you have this brilliant ability to think in a very disciplined manner. And hence, you become very goal-driven. And then I've seen from my mother to my wife, to my nieces now, and to a lot of friends, there is definitely a lot of thinking behind that money part. And there are definitely shifting, though many may not admit, but there is a goal behind which they go from one goal to the other and achieving that with the money that they are given within that gamut of money that they have. And the other part which sort of will be discussed a little later as we speak is the conservativeness of women. This is a very social thing, and correct me if I'm wrong, that they've been taught from very a young age that you need to be careful, you need to know about things, and hence that sort of grows and builds into them a type of conservativeness which is good for investing, but can be developed into a very different art and that's something which I'd like to speak in the next part of my presentation. When you read this lady, Charlie Schwab, and she's the daughter of Mr. Schwab, the great investor worldwide, she has done a lot of work on financial independence of women. And I'd really request all of you to read her a bit and Google her a bit, because she emphasizes the fact on why financial independence is a matter of necessity for women. It is not by choice. It is a desire. It is not by whim or anything. It is something which is needed for women more than men, and it stems from the basic fact, and believe it or not, that women live longer than men, and this is data. We've taken the national health data to put it in front of you. When you look at the actual data, the fact remains that at 65 years, women are likely to live for more 20 years going forward, much longer than any man. And trust me when I say this, that at that age, when you are alone, the most important thing that you need with you is money. That goes for both man and woman. But there is no bigger friend at that age leading a... And then the other thing that I wanted to say, that today, when we discuss money, it is got nothing to do with emotions. So for the next 15 minutes, just keep emotions aside and let's just discuss money. Because some of the things that I'll say, and that's a big fight between my mother and me, because when I say some things, she'll say, how can a son say this? I keep on correcting her, where you think whether you're talking to your son or you're talking to your financial advisor. So from that perspective, when at that age, when life is a little lonely, money comes as a great help. And that's something all of you must keep in mind. I didn't believe this data. So I asked and since I'm doing Lucknow, Kanpur, I talked to a very good financial advisor in Lucknow on this data. And she asked me a very interesting question. Look around you. How many widows do you see and how many widowers do you see? And I leave that for you to answer, right? The fact remains that women live longer than men. This is a factual data and cannot be debated. And that gives or stems from it the basic need that women need more money for their retirement than men do. And that's a reality which I wanted to sink into all of you, so that, you know, till you don't scare people, the need for money does not come. Yeah. From this perspective, let me now base the rest of the presentation, because most of you would say, okay, we are saving, we are investing, and what is the right mix? Because there is a very basic thing, that saving is not investing. Let me make that clear, because if it meant the same thing, it would have one word in the dictionary. When it comes to savings, it is putting aside some money which does not grow. When you put money aside to grow, or you add a purpose to that saving, it becomes an investment. In the words of the great Warren Buffett, he said, do not save what is left after saving, spend after what is left after saving. You know, first you put aside your money, invest it, keep it growing, and then whatever is left, you can spend from there. So keeping money idle, which I've seen a lot of women in my family do, the keep it stashed aside, and we'll talk about it a little later, is something which is not advisable. And going forward, I do not know how it has been now, but going forward, if we can just convert this into active money rather than passive money, it would help us a lot. Because finally, there is this big, element called inflation. If you keep cash idle, it actually comes down. Let me give you an example. When Maruti came, and the first car it came in Bhubaneswar, the price of Maruti was 52,000. And I know the people who drove that car and the social level of that Maruti 800 in that city. It was priced at 52,000. What is 52,000 today? Just gave you a little bit earlier than that. The price for Gabbar Singh was pure 50,000. What is 50,000 today? And that's something which all of us should think about, that inflation does eat up your money. So keeping your money idle is actually losing money over a period of time. 1 rupee after 20 years is just 38 paisa. That's what it is when it comes to keeping money aside. So the ability to grow money is how you should be approaching investing. And the more you get efficient into it, the better it becomes for you in life. Because investing is about life. And when it comes to life, everybody's life is different. And hence, everybody's approach to investing is completely different. What is good for me is not good for you. What is good for me is not good for my wife. What is good for me is not good for my son. Because everybody's goals and wishes and targets in life are different. Hence, the first thing when you start investing is ask yourself a simple question. And that simple question is just one word. And that is, why am I investing? Once you know the why you are investing, where you are investing is just an outcome. That's not the bigger issue. The bigger issue is, why are you investing? Because everybody's why is different. Hence, everybody's where will be different. Right? So the first thing that one should do is fix one's goals. And with a goal comes a different investment horizon, because the time frame differs because of the money that is there at disposal with you, or you don't have, or you have money, is dependent on the time frame. There are short-term goals, there are long-term goals. And the most important part of investing is knowing yourself, knowing your risk profile, how much risk is good for you, how much risk is not good for you. Everybody's risk profile is correct. Somebody is investing in exotic instruments and making money. You don't like it, it's fine. So everybody's risk profile and everybody's goals are different, and everybody's life is dependent on that. Hence, everything is correct. There is no right way of investing. There is no wrong way of investing, as long as investing is aligned to your own desires and your wishes about what you want in life. When you take that forward, and let's talk about risk, because that's the most important part of investing. We think it is a business of getting returns, but it's actually a business about knowing yourself and knowing your own risk profile. When we went through something like COVID in the last 6 months, we are seeing us asking ourselves very different questions about our own life. Some of us who believed we were great investors in the equity side saw 7 years of money just going away in 2 months. And a lot of us did not agree to that, the turbulence or the volatility of the money that happened in these last 6 months. So while you start as a different risk profile, life around you changes, and with that, the risk profile also changes. What was good for you 10 years ago may not be good for me. If I were to ask you, and due to paucity of time, I'm not asking you for answers, between my mom, myself, and my wife, you'll be very surprised to learn that my mom, who's a retired professor in Bhubaneswar, has the highest risk-taking ability. Because she has a retirement kitty in place, she has a very good pension coming every month. So her risk-taking ability is at a different level. My wife defined the first slide, which I said, very careful, very meticulous, has a very different risk profile. I am building my retirement kitty. So my risk profile is very different. It's very different to my mother, who already has everything set and the pension is kind of money for her to spend. But I am trying to create a pension. So the risk profile of myself vis-a-vis my retired professor mother is very different. She invests in what you call small caps, which is the most riskiest stocks in the market. I don't invest in that. Does not make her a superior investor, does not make me an inferior investor at all. It's just that our goals and our needs are very different. So knowing your risk profile and what is good for you is very important in this entire process of investing. My humble request is for you to just ask those questions in a very strict manner to yourself, and all the answers that you get are correct. And based on that, you can start investing. So before you start investing, 2 things before we proceed further: ask yourself why you are investing, and ask yourself what you can do, and more important, make a list of what you will not do. Sometimes investing is about knowing what you will not do. If you're very clear about that, investing becomes a breeze. I mean, it's a very easy process. But this is where it gets tricky. Sometimes some other person does things and finds great results in that, and you get carried away. Yeah, this is where women strike it better than men, because I do believe, and I have definite faith in all of you, that you will remain your true disciplined level or true disciplined self when it comes to investing going forward. Yeah, because goals can be different, and each one's goals are different. If I give you my goals, you'll laugh, because my long-term goal is to own a phenomenal music system. And if I tell the money that is to be required for that music system, and if that goes back to my wife, my evening is not going to be good. That's my goal. And then if that's my goal, so be it. There's nothing wrong with it. I'm just pursuing my own goal. Some people have other goals in their mind. They want a very different, or they want a bigger house, and different people have different approaches to life. But when it comes to short-term, mid-term, and long-term goals, if one can differentiate them, then one can plan better on these aspects. Just to take it forward, what are the right ways of investing, or the right way of investing can lead to more independence to you. Yeah, because what happens is, when you look at the broad investing, the investing is divided into 2 parts. How you invest and where you invest are 2 parts. When you look at how you invest and in what proportion, is what we call asset allocation. and that's the buzzword, you would have heard it. It's in a simple terms, how much money you put where, and we'll go a little deeper in the next slide, is that, and where you invest. Is that when you look at asset allocation, is suppose you have 100 rupees, how do you divide your 100 rupees into various asset classes, is your asset allocation. And then when do you put that money, is in which asset, is a security selection. Some people believe markets or the stock markets or timing the markets are a great way of investing. And there are some other factors in the form of regulation, taxes, which come and affect your investment. What happens invariably is 99% of time we concentrate on these factors, which are how are the markets, where should I invest, how is the taxation, what is the finance minister going to do in the budget. This is where 99% of the time goes. While 1% probably goes here. Trust me, 99% of your money is made due to this, and only 1% of your money is made due to this. So just switch the thinking a bit and concentrate more on where and how much are you investing, because that's a controllable. What is your security selection and how it will behave is not a controllable. How the markets behave is not a controllable. What the finance minister will do on the taxation is only known to the finance minister. These are not controllables. And the more you concentrate on your controllables, the better the outcome is. There is no point actually thinking on this side. But unfortunately, whenever we go or I meet anybody, the first question is, "Bazaar kya lagta hai? Ye stock chalega kya? क्या करना चाहिए अभी, थोड़ा लेने का है अभी या बाद में लूं." Those are immaterial. What is material to you is how you put the money. And when you look at the broad aspect of money investing, the sooner you start, the better, because there is this big concept of compounding, and the more time you give to it. These are all Googleable things, so I don't want to spend much time in this. Just the fact is, the sooner you start, the better it is, because you give time for your investment to grow, and beyond a point of time, it just starts flourishing. The other part is, of course, when you look at the different levels, apart from this ROI chart, I would really request you to Google something called the rule of 72. That is a better way of looking at it. And the concept of 72 is a very interesting fact, and that leads to various ROIs, which you can define very easily. It just stems from the fact that the earlier you invest, the higher returns you will get over a period of time. But when you look at the assets that you can invest, and this is where the whole sort of subject lies, is the different places that we invest our gold. We invest in property. Of course, the buzzword is to invest in equities. There are debt instruments that you invest, which are called bond, and then there is cash. When you look at gold and property, we have that sorted out, probably because we are probably the 9th or 10th generation investor in gold and property, and we understand that much better than investing in what the other side, which we call financial assets. These two are what we call fixed assets in the form of house or rental property, which we call real estate. And then from that perspective, when you put just gold and property in one basket, we followed a very interesting concept of buy and hold. When you look at, say, Bhubaneswar, and let's discuss Bhubaneswar because I come from there, my father would have taken me around we had a scooter then, and would have shown me a place very close to Dharitri's old house near Kalprachak. You know, this plot was available to me at only 2,500, but I didn't buy. Today, that plot would be available at what price? You know very well. We bought a plot in Nayapalli at 6,500 rupees in 1985. Today, the availability of that, or the availability is nil. The price is known to all of you. I can talk about Kanpur, but I don't have much time on that. But when it comes to gold, and let's talk about gold, all of you have been given a date to buy gold by the financial planners of the past. Across the country, the dates are different. And you go and buy gold on, say, an Akshaya Tritiya. You don't bother whether the price of gold is what. And gold is a commodity. It depends on the demand and supply. Because the demand is highest on Akshaya Tritiya, without checking, you should know that the price of the gold is the highest. Do you even bother about it? You just go and buy gold. I was just listening to my wife the other day, and she was telling me something which struck me, is that in everybody's house, and I can say that for all the women that are there in front of me, there would be much more gold in your lockers than you probably use, right? But do you bother about that? On Akshaya Tritiya, you go and buy. If you bought it 3 days later, no, you would have got it cheaper. But do you care? Do you bother? No, you don't. Because you've been told that day you buy. You just go and buy. And then the financial planner has added a very nice superstition after that. You cannot sell gold. तेरे ये दिन आ गए कि तू सोना बेच रहा है. You can't sell gold, right? If you apply the same philosophy to any other good asset class, money is there to be made. Because when you look at gold, it is not just buying for one generation, it is generation to generation. My grandmother had bought it, my mother had bought it. My wife doesn't buy, I force her to buy. That's a different issue. I hope and pray my son doesn't buy. Here is a simple request. Since we come to the conclusion that there is more gold in your locker than there is at your home, and invariably you don't buy you don't wear half of it that is there in the locker. My humble submission is, why don't we change this from next Akshaya Tritiya to buying gold in the financial format, which is the DMAT format. Try it out and see if it works for you. The other places where you invest are equities, which are the stock market. If you have the capability, go directly. Because I'm talking to women of a different acumen, I would definitely urge you to go and buy stocks. People who are business owners like you won't have any difficulty in assessing a business and coming to a conclusion whether the company is good or not. If you can buy, go and buy directly. If you cannot, guys like me are there who will help you through mutual funds. There are bonds that are available, and today the RBI governor made a very, very fantastic RBI policy in front of all of us. The market has cheered it. You can go and buy bonds on your own, or you can buy through mutual funds. And the last part is, of course, you have to keep some cash in the form of emergency. From a women cash perspective, what used to happen is it used to be kept traditionally in the form of cash in various places in the house. What demonetization has taught us is that keeping cash in the house is very injurious to health. I don't want to get into the social impact of so much of cash coming out and people knowing that so much of cash was there at home, because there is the other side of the whole issue. The best way of holding cash is in your savings bank account. If you want to do it a little bit better, there are very good capital preserved sort of solutions from mutual funds. And if you have time, we can discuss that. So broadly, people invest in these 5 asset classes, and in how you spread your money across in these 5 asset classes is what we call asset allocation. The basic thing that has changed about asset allocation, I'm spending a little bit more time because there's a substantial change, because the thumb rules have changed. There is no thumb rule anymore that you invest in a house for so many years and you'll make money. In fact, the other day, if you look at the situation in Mumbai right now, people are buying houses at 20% lower than what they had bought 6 years ago. So money is not being made in property on a guaranteed basis. So the thumb rule for each asset classes has changed. Hence the need to know more about investing. Hence the need to have a more dynamic sort of strategy when it comes to investing, right? This is the process, and I'll sum it up with this, that the process of investing is very simple. Either you meet a good advisor, and there are enough financial advisors in the country. There are some phenomenal women financial advisors in the country. Some of my friends are incredible advisors, let me tell you. I've been very fortunate to have worked with such women who not only beat me at financial acumen, but also beat me at physical labor. They can do more sales calls than I do. They can travel more than I do. So some of the best advisors in the country are women. Or you can choose a man, that's your call. But once you meet your advisor, the second step, which is the most important step, is to discuss your goal. And I'd really request all of you to be as transparent as possible. The more transparent you are, the better it will be for the advisor to come back and help you. The advisor will take you through what is called a risk profiling process to know your investments, do's and don'ts better. From there will emerge a financial plan. Your plan will encompass your various goals and will put a process of how to reach that financial plan. And after that, and just think about it when I say this, after that comes scheme selection. This is the fifth step of the investment process. But whenever I meet somebody, the first question is, which is your best scheme? Where should I invest? My answer to them is, do you need that best scheme of mine? You may not need it, because every scheme or every investment avenue comes with its own risk profile. Whether that risk profile suits you or whether that risk profile suits your finance plan is something which is determined at a later stage. So my humble request, and I know that happens first, so I'm just jumping the gun and letting you know that the scheme selection comes at a far later stage. It is not the first step. It might be a great scheme in the market, but it may not suit you, right? So understand what suits you and do the financial plan first before you come to a scheme selection. After that comes the most important part, is a periodic review. Your advisor will fix up a review sort of process, and that review part happens on two things. One is whether you are on your goals. If you are on your goals, fantastic. If you are not, there are some corrective actions which are taken to get you back to your actual asset allocation and what we call a portfolio rebalancing. So this is the simple process. We can do another session someday to go deeper into this entire slide, because each, process on this is a 20-minute sort of discussion. So it's an extensive discussion that happens, and it's a perpetual discussion that happens. Please understand, the star in this process are your goals, not the scheme. And the person who takes you to your goals is the rock star. So please understand, the goals are most important. Risk profiling comes after that. So once you have these two, where you will invest is a very, very subset or a very minimal subset of the entire process, and can be done by anybody. But spend some time in the first 4 parts of this to arrive at very easy conclusions of where you will invest. Right? I say all this because when you look at the globe, and why I'm confident you all will do it better, is there was a recent survey by Goldman Sachs, and Goldman Sachs survey says women are beating male fund managers by 1% in the US. The US returns from capital markets in the lower single digit. We're talking about 4 or 5% return, and women are outperforming men by 1%. Hence, I do believe that the acumen of women that I'm talking to right now will have absolutely no issues in investing in a very, very systematic and proper manner. Women are better than men in investing. There's no doubt or debate in that. It's just like what Aarti said, they don't invest enough. My humble request to all of you would be to start the process as soon as possible. Follow a very simple path. Get acquainted with the markets, and then if you need further help, guys like me can be called back any point of time. There are many people like us. But before I end, a word, which is my final slide in all my presentations that I make, because we believe it's a process of getting returns, but actually it is a process of understanding risks. When you look at some of the adventure sports, many of us might feel that these are people taking a lot of risks. But trust me, they know what they're doing. And when you look at actual photographs of these somewhere, if you Google them, all of them thoroughly enjoy what they're doing. Because when you look at investing, there is a risk to investing. And trust me, there is a bigger risk to not investing as well. So think about it. If you are not investing, India at this moment is on a growth path. And when you compare India to the rest of the world, we are still not a full-blown, developed economy. There is a lot of inefficiency, or there are a lot of opportunities in this path of India of going from a developing or an emerging economy to a developed economy. Once it is a developed economy, the returns from investment sort of taper. So hence, the risk of investing, of not investing, are far higher when it comes to India at this moment. So think about it and do the right thing. You all know the process of doing it right more than men. I'm sorry. So please do invest, and if there is any way we can help you further, and we'll be very happy. So this is what I had to say. I'll pause now and take some questions if there are, and I'll be very happy to answer the questions if there are.
Thanks. Aarti, shall I go ahead?
Super. Thank you so much, Swaroop. That was an excellent presentation. I love the tagline. There is a risk to investing, but there's a bigger risk to not investing, especially in India. Couldn't agree with you more on that. Very quickly, we'll have a moderated Q&A session between Dhartri and myself, and then we'll take questions from the audience. So if I can request the members to please post your questions, and please do not think that any question is stupid or small, like, no questions are stupid. So please feel free to post any queries you have, and we'll take it up with Mr. Mohanty. Over to you, Dhartri.
Thanks, Swaroop. That was like an eye-opener to someone who understands nothing about investments, and you know how badly I've messed up. So you've been saying that women are very good fund managers or financial advisors. Forget men and women, but how does one identify, what are the criteria for identifying the right fund manager for wealth management?
See, again, I'll just go back to that slide, because when there are two things. The fund manager is a scheme. I was referring to an advisor. Okay. So the discussion that we should be having is which advisor is good for you.
Okay.
Yeah. So there is no right way or wrong way. The advisor will also have a journey with you, right? From our perspective, there are certified advisors. The mutual fund advisors have to pass a particular test, and they are certified by what we call the Association of Mutual Fund in India. I also have to go through a test to be certified. I am also a certified person, and it's not a perpetual sort of certificate we get. We have to go back and reappear the exam. Our certification is valid only for 3 years. And all the advisors and the distributors who are there in the market reappear the exam, because the markets are dynamic. Hence, we have to be in touch with the market. And so anybody who comes with you has to tell you the sort of experience that he or she has had. We'll have to, it's like picking up a doctor, no? How do you pick up a doctor? You go through certain credentials, and then after that also you take a second opinion, right? So you can start that way. Judge a person if he or she is answering your questions right, is he or she is understanding you well, and it's more a partnership than anything else, and time decides a good partnership, right? I can't define it better. Fact is, you have to check the credentials. Of course, education is a very important part. I would really request you to ask for the right certification. If somebody is selling you insurance or medical insurance or mutual funds or any other thing, are they certified enough? There are two types of advisors. One is a mutual fund distributor. The other part is a registered investment advisor. There are two different roles. The advisor speaks for your benefit or represents you with us. The mutual fund distributors are paid commissions by us and represent us in front of you. Do a little bit of studying, do a little bit of reading. Everybody is Googleable in India. So track them a bit on social media is my humble request, and you can arrive at a conclusion. It's very similar to how you pick up a doctor, nothing different.
Thank you. And kind of moving from there, how does one begin investing? What would be for someone who's just starting to invest and create their portfolio? How would they go about it?
See, I think what Aarti said about no question is wrong or right. I will take it one step forward, saying that no money is wrong or right. A lot of people tell me कि मेरे पास इतना पैसा नहीं है कि इतनी पैसा रे मुझे केमती invest करिबी. Is a very wrong way of looking at investment. Sorry, I went into an Odia a little bit. I'll stick to Hindi and English. But first of all, the first question that you have to ask yourself is, why do you want to invest? If you need 10 lakh rupees and you have 10 lakh rupees in the bank, you actually don't need to invest. There is no compulsion for you to invest. You have to invest if there is a need. And for women, the need is most important from a retirement perspective, because from a working women perspective, but otherwise, I'll just give you an example. My aunt is in Cuttack. I lost my uncle 2 years ago. And I used to handle a little part of my uncle's money. He was a very decent advocate. And then my aunt didn't know about that money. I called her up and there's some more money, let me give you back. And that money was around 4.5 lakhs and the markets were good. And I was telling her, we can hit 5 lakhs and I'll give you 5 lakhs. Trust me, every day the call was, is it 5 lakhs today? Is it 5 lakhs today? And I asked her one day, is 5 lakhs so important? I mean, I'm getting a call every day on this. I told you I'll give it on that. Then she said something very interesting. I'm a single woman staying in Cuttack. At this moment, I have people coming to my house. This is my social. My kids are not with me. Some of them are abroad. And there is no way we will be in touch anymore on a living perspective. My social status depends on the amount of money that I have at this moment. The people who work with me or the helps that I have in my house will look at that money too. And that discussion has not left me since. And when you add to the fact that you're going to live longer than me, I'm not going to give my wife the advantage of me living longer than her, and that's data. I'm just talking about men and women in general. The need for investing is as on yesterday. If you have enough money, not an issue. Don't invest. Don't come into this complicated world. But again, as Aarti rightly pointed out, the money is in the name of Dharitri Patnaik. If money is not, and here I get a little unemotional and I don't want to say things which I don't want to say. If money is not in the name of Dharitri Patnaik, then it is not money of Dharitri Patnaik. That's the reality of money. Please understand what I'm not trying to say. Yeah. So from that perspective, if there is enough money, typically, and this is a debate which I have with every family because I feel very strongly about it. And I feel very strongly about financial independence of every woman on this earth, is that from a retirement or an old age perspective, there has to be enough money, either willed, inherited, or in your name. If it is not there, then please invest. And you will be surprised how a little amount of money over a period of 10, 15 years in a growing country like India can lead to whatever. It'll surprise you.
Great. Thanks. Maybe, yeah. So I've just one last question, Aarti. Swarup, you've been talking about what we call more institutional and conventional investing mechanisms. But I want to know, like, most of the people living in small towns, small cities, follow very traditional and unconventional ways of investing. You know, they would invest in someone's business, something which is really not good. So do you advise to stay away from those kind of investments and have a financial advisor who would advise you and take you through a proper mechanism?
Yeah, I think if you are comfortable with that investment process and if you're sure of the returns from there and more or less assured of the money back, nothing wrong in that. Finally, investing in a business is what you do on your own. When you come to the stock market, you are investing in somebody's business. It's the same process. If somebody is okay with that process, I would definitely agree with that. But just take a third-party consultant, maybe a chartered accountant, somebody who can help you in the paperwork of that investment. What I agree with you, a lot of these investments are done on trust, and money is very good, money is also very bad. Okay. So just institutionalize that process, it is better. If money is invested somewhere, there has to be some paperwork on that money. Is a humble request. Whether right or wrong, I don't want to comment, but that's the right way of investing. There's nothing wrong in investing in somebody else's business if you feel that business is going to give you back money. In case you want to come here, which is a more transparent, more, a more institutionalized process, then you have to hire a good advisor. If you don't want to hire an advisor, there are enough amount of do-it-yourself investors, sort of growing per day. It is not a very complicated process. Do some reading, and there is enough on Google itself which can teach you investing in a very simple manner. Start in a very simple process, pick up some very core sort of investment avenues, and then start getting comfortable with the risks of those and build a good plan for yourself.
Thank you. Thank you very much. I hand it over to Aarti now.
Super. Thank you. Thank you. Swaroop, I have a couple of technical questions, before we take what is coming from the audience. Till some time back, fixed deposits and FMPs were considered to be one of the most secured investments, right?
Yeah.
But now we have seen, whether be it the ILNFS or DHFL case, how AAA rated companies can default. What do you think about, can you tell us a little bit about the debt mutual funds and the various credit ratings and how we should approach that today? Because I'm assuming that today in our audience, most of the women have the basic idea and are investing into some mutual funds, both equity and debt, and the complications are coming when you have to understand the deeper nuances of these investments.
Correct. No, brilliant question. I must say that, I come from, at the beginning of my career, I used to sell fixed deposits, and that's how I started my career. Traditionally, we used to invest in fixed deposits because the interest rates were fixed. And if you look at today, it's a very dynamic sort of interest rate, because interest rate, what is interest rate? Interest rate is where the need and the want meet, of an organization. I need 100 rupees, but 100 rupees, if I go to the market, there is a certain rate at which I will borrow, which is different from different companies depending on their balance sheet state. What an HDFC can probably get away with an interest rate, a lower rated company may not be able to get that interest rate, right? Again, I bring that simple question. If somebody is able to judge this, one should go and do it on your own. But if you cannot, then come to a professional fund manager who assesses this on a daily basis. And in spite of being a professional, you've seen funds investing in some of the names that you've sort of spelled out. As a fund house, it's taken a lot of acumen for us to build a 12-year career without a single credit default, right? But if you don't have a credit default, that means your portfolios are a little safer, hence your returns are a little lower. If you check us on the debt side, because our returns are a little lower and risk adjusted a little lower, we don't get enough money from the market. That is where I spend some time on the risk side. There is this saying that higher the risk, higher the return, right? It is now changed to higher the risk, higher should be the return, because that is not true. You've gone in for higher yielding yielding papers which have defaulted. So at this moment, especially on the debt side, unless you are investing with the sovereign, which is the government of India, if you are investing in a non-sovereign part, my humble request would be to invest through a mutual fund. That's the right way of investing. The balance sheets are getting pretty complicated, and I would definitely advocate going through a fund manager than going directly at this moment. Build a good core and satellite portfolio on your debt side. Your core portfolio should be the defensive ones, which will give you a certain return at a minimum. And if you want to take certain risks with the help of an advisor, go into those risky funds and get that 1% or 0.5 more. It is possible. If you want, I can forward a small podcast I did recently on how to invest in debt. It's on Bloomberg Quint, where we've talked about how you can do that. That's a 20-minute sort of discussion, and I don't have that kind of time, but build a good sort of part where when you start your portfolio, you have to decide between equity and debt. And there is this thumb rule that we have, that younger you are, the higher it is on the equity side. So if my son is say 21, that means 21% in debt, 79% in equity. As he starts growing, his risk-taking ability comes down, or his need to be in safer assets increase. So the debt increases and the equity comes down. You can follow that thumb rule for your asset allocation. Suppose I am 50, so I am a little aggressive. So I am still 65% equity. Age plus 15 is my equity, and the balance is debt. That is what I follow.
That's an excellent thumb rule you suggested about with the age. So going forward, we would like to know if you can tell us a little bit about the fees and charges and exit loads. A lot of fund managers talk about this, and a lot of people talk about this. So is there an industry practice one should be wary of, or what is a general rule of thumb? Because I know a lot of people who've been duped with these charges and exit loads and are paying much more than they should.
Yep. Okay. See, on the mutual fund side, it is clearly laid out. Okay. A lot of these questions come on the PMS side. But from the mutual fund side, the industry is very standard. Okay. On the equity side, there is a 1-year exit load. Beyond 1 year, it is very coincided. It coincides with the taxation of the country. Unfortunately, the taxation of the country says long-term is debt, short-term is equity, which is an anomaly because the long-term taxation of the debt is 3 years and the long-term taxation on equity is 1 year. I don't know how that works, but that is the law, right? So the equity part exit load is 1 year. There are some closed-ended funds, which is a separate thing, but I'm talking about open-ended funds. Typically on the debt side, depending on your investment horizon, there are different fund categories and accordingly the exit loads are there. The liquid funds have a 7-day lock-in. The money markets fund have no lock-in or no exit load. You can come in today and go out tomorrow. But as you go up to the short-term fund, there is a 6-month exit load. Typically the long-term debt funds have a 1-year exit load. I don't think any mutual fund today has more than 1-year exit load, but beyond 1 year, you are free to exit across asset classes.
Yeah, but there is something called direct investments as well,
Yes,
right? So,
yes.
So,
So direct investments, so today we have 2 NAVs. One is through the distributor and one, as you rightly said, is direct. The difference between the regular NAV, which is the distributor NAV, and the direct NAV is the fees we pay the distributor. Suppose I'll give you an example. I have an India large cap fund where the distributor NAV is 1.75 and the direct NAV is 60. So the fees we pay or the commission we pay is on an average of 90 basis points in the market. So if you take that fund directly with us, and you have to have the knowledge to assess the fund and come to the conclusion whether mid-asset large cap is a good fund for you or not. If you have that capability, then you should come directly and take it at 60 basis points. Because there are some 6,000 funds in the market. To arrive at a fund which is good for you takes some acumen. If you can build it, fantastic, and you should. But if you cannot, then you can go through an advisor.
Great. Thank you. Would you suggest, coming on that point where you can build your own acumen, would you suggest any websites or reading material which our members can go through, which kind of lists down the funds and kind of, informs you about what to look into each of these mutual funds before investing?
See, I think before going into that, there are some very good shows that come into TV. There's some very good shows which come across, whether it's from Zee Business in Hindi to CNBC in English. Follow some of those shows. Follow some of those people who come on there. They will tell you mutual fund investing in a very simple manner. One of my favorites is the MF Corner, which comes on CNBC. It's a very good program to follow because some very qualified people come and answer questions, and questions are very simple in nature. So that could be there. One could read up a lot of global sites, and all the websites of mutual funds are very good to read. All of us come and give you some education of how to invest. There are some very interesting people who run YouTube channels. You can follow them. A lot of us come and do Facebook Live and on concepts of investing, how to do SIP, what do's and don'ts of SIP. There is enough. So you just have to Google your question, and it's very surprising how many people also have Googled the same question. How should I invest in mutual funds? You type it out, there'll be 300 pages for you. So you can follow some of the global sites and you can follow some of the Indian sites. It's out there. There is enough in the market, but I would encourage everybody to read a bit, because if you read a bit, it becomes very simple. It's not a complicated thing. Please understand, a person like me has to come and tell you that it's complicated to charge you some fees. It's not complicated.
Great. Thank you. I would now like to ask a question which probably is everyone's favorite, or at least every woman's favorite thing, about gold.
Yeah.
What is your opinion on gold? So, each family has some physical gold. Every household has it in their lockers. Do you think one needs to invest, in addition to this, one needs to invest a percentage in their portfolio as well?
See, gold is a definite requirement in everybody's portfolio. Gold is a great hedge against uncertainty, right? And that is why traditionally it is considered as the go-to investment. I mean, in Odisha, let me tell you, if we are selling gold, means we have exhausted all our other financial resources and finally we bank on gold. That is how it has been perceived as, and there is a reason for that. The country also, if from a sovereign perspective, also piles up gold reserves for that bad day. It's a great hedge against markets. It's a great hedge against rupee volatility. So it boils down to us also. Now, how much gold you should have is something which you have to determine as per your financial plan. There is no thumb rule anymore. Earlier, there were gurus who would come and tell you that, boss, itna gold to rakhne ka hai. But that is not true anymore. It is your life, so you decide how much. But when you decide, suppose just for discussion's sake, it is 10 rupees, 10%. And you believe that the jewelry you have there is 10 rupees at 10%. Then there is no point in increasing the gold. What is the problem with gold is you don't sell gold. And whenever you go to buy gold, it is always expensive. I got married in 1996. I hope I got that year right. And the gold was 5,400 rupees. Right? It looked bloody expensive to my wife and I. Okay, unfortunately, I was one of those guys who said, no dowry. I'm sorry I did that then, but you know, I had to go and buy some gold for myself. But 5,500 looked expensive there. For the last 6-7 years, it looked as if gold was not moving, and suddenly in 6 months, it's the talk of the town. The key to investing is, suppose you have decided that it is 10%, and because of the price movement, it goes up to 12% of your portfolio. Unemotionally, you should be selling that 2%. But traditionally, you will not sell that 2%. That is the problem of holding physical gold. That is why, because I'm pretty sure that the kind of women I'm talking to right now have enough money to cater to that allocation already. Going forward, try it out. I know many of you will not like it because the thought of having a good gold chain appeals to me. I come from Odisha, so I can give Bapi Lahiri a run for his money from the amount of gold we guys used to eat, wear in our good old days. But if you can own gold in the demat form going forward, and if it goes above the allocation, try and sell it off. It's a better way of investing. That's the prudent way of investing. And I know the next generation will do it like that. Selling this concept to this generation is tricky. But that's, if you ask me prudently, that's what should be happening. If the gold is at this level, some of your old gold should be already sold.
Great. Thank you. I would love to keep on asking you questions, but in the interest of time, I'm going to make this the last one. We want to know what are the current sectors you're currently investing, you know, and obviously Mirae is known to give out one of the highest returns in the industry. So what is the secret behind this?
No, secret is the fund management team. I am not the secret. Let me clarify day one, but the secret is what I spelled out is discipline. And I'm very fortunate to be working with a group of fund managers. There is Mr. Nilesh Surana, who is our CIO, and he's been awarded the best fund manager for the last 4 or 5 years. This year he's number 2, he's not number 1. Previous 4 years he was number 1, but it's not possible to be that consistent unless you are disciplined. What really is incredible for me to see is that if it goes to that 12%, irrespective of how much he's liked that stock, that 2% would be sold. Irrespective. If we give another session, I can go and give you examples of where he's gone and the team has gone and found, we were the first fund to actually identify that stock. And that stock is not there in the portfolio. I asked them, how have they done? Because see, yes, the entire, and this is about business. You want to acquire a certain asset at a certain price. Beyond a certain price, that asset is not good. Even if you are the first person to go and buy that piece, that asset. Right? That is how investment is done. It's clear cutoff of target price. And once the target price is met, irrespective of how much you like that business, you have to get out. Right? So 2 years ago, when we said that healthcare or pharma is very good, people did not listen to us. And I have in my I did that last time in the year 2000, when I said it's very good to buy technology. And trust me, 10 rupees went to 2 rupees. And I got the learning of risk in my life very early in my career, that somebody gave me 10,000 rupees and it became 2,000 rupees. I got a call saying that, I say that in Bengali, Guru, is cigarette তোমার ইউনিট থেকে বেশি হয়ে গেছে। The price of the cigarette became more than the unit price of my fund. Cannot be more shocking than that. And after that, after 20 years, 18 years, we gave a call that it's a great time to buy healthcare or pharma. And that point of time, pharma was at a rock bottom. People said, abhi thodi na kharidte hain. See, the stock market is the only place where people run away when there is a sale. That is what Warren Buffett has said. Okay, so at that point, nobody bought. But after giving sort of 65% return absolute in 2 years, people are buying pharma at this moment. There is no tomorrow. It is not the time to buy pharma. The easy money is gone. The easy money is there in consumption. The easy money is there in banking. But yes, it's not looking good for banking and consumption. But think of an India 5-10 years later. Can it become good if banking does not become good? Can it become good if consumption is not back in place? Please understand, a government works or any country works when you buy what you want, not what you need. Why is the country not working right now? Because you are buying only what you need. And your life is okay. But the country will go down if you stick to what you need. If you stick to what you need. The country only goes ahead with consumption. And that is where, the real story happens. So if consumption is not doing well, and consumption is something which the country will depend on. If banking is not doing well, and banking will be a strong pillar of the economy, and this is the time to buy them, not pharma or healthcare right now. And this is not our view. This is a very simple view. No rocket science in coming to that. But doing it is tough. I agree.
Great. So ladies, it's consumption and what was the other thing you said?
Banking.
Banking. Yes, consumption and banking. What you should be picking up the stocks from. I'll take one more question from the audience. I think there was a question about what is the best way to invest in US stocks from India.
I would say open a Demat account, buy a good ETF. There are some very good NASDAQ ETFs in the market. There is one for Motilal. It's a lovely fund. You can buy that. And then the best way of buying a market is entering equities. First, buy the market. If some of you are not buying equities, I would really request you to open a Demat account. You have the acumen. Suppose I am saying that banking is a good sector to be in. You can call me back after 3 years and hold me responsible if I'm right or wrong. I'll be very happy to do that. But within that, why don't you just pick up 3-4 good banking stocks? It's very easy to know which are the good banks, right? In consumption. If you are not doing that, then buy the banking index in the form of an ETF is the best thing to do. First, buy the market. Get comfortable with it, and then graduate to a fund and get to a guy who will beat the market. The safest and the best way to understand is open a Demat account, suppose I am saying, or somebody around you tells you, you should ask me why banking. Then I have to justify why banking. If you are happy or convinced with that answer, buy the banking Nifty and hold on for 3 years and call me back after 3 years.
Great, lovely. We'll share Mr. Mohanty's email address, and ladies, whoever buys the banking ETFs can email him and thank him, because
let me tell you, I don't have a banking ETF. I don't have one.
So you have a mutual fund with banking stocks in it.
Yeah.
Okay, great. So we do have some more questions, but I'm extremely sorry. We're short on time. So if I can request the IT team to put on the green certificate, and Dharitri, both of us together can present the green certificate to Mr. Mohanty. Basically, Swaroop, we have a tradition where to honor our guests, we plant a tree in your name in the forest of Sundarbans, and you can track, just like you can track your NAVs, you can track the growth of this tree. And I hope the tree grows as fast as your mutual fund returns are growing. So please do fondly remember.
Fantastic. Really appreciate. Really fantastic. You couldn't have done it better. Thank you so much. Really appreciate it. And thank you for your time.
Because his wife is from West Bengal, so
No, wife is from Bhubaneswar. She's a Bengali, but she's from Bhubaneswar only.
Super, great. Can I now request the senior vice chairs of Flow Bhubaneswar and Kanpur to please give the vote of thanks?
Yes, good evening, friends. What a brainstorming session it was on finance. We always know that the moment a woman was born or a girl is born, we say Lakshmi aa gayi. But today actually we came to know it is depending on us. The picture we have to create by knowing rightly the financial literacy, and be a true Lakshmi in true sense. Friends, right from the beginning, however strong and potential a woman is, the moment you ask something about finance or financial literacy or investment, the question is redirected that please ask my hubby, my bro, my father. So but girls, it is time to know that we women are like tea bags, you know. We'll never know how strong we are until we get into the hot water. And that is what exactly Mr. Swaroop Mohanty has done to us today with his vast knowledge on finance, has shown us how strong we can be with proper investment and guide. Mr. Mohanty, you have touched upon the real points, which was immensely informative and I'm sure will be useful to each one of us. Your investment policies and the example of your mother, wife, and yourself was just awesome and made the fundamentals clear for us. We love the way you guided us and really enlightened us regarding the steps and process of investment. And yes, I'm sure, for sure that we will be investing in banking and consumption, and we'll definitely call you through Dharitri, of course, because Dharitri is our chairperson from Bhubaneswar. And thank you for what you have told to us. So I, on behalf of FICCI Flow, Bhubaneswar and Kanpur, extend my heartfelt thanks to you for guiding us and sparing your valuable time for us. And a special mention that we are very proud of you because you are from Odisha and then from Bhubaneswar. And I feel a special lighted proud because I share the same title with you, that is Mohanty. Thank you so much. Thank you so much for coming here and enlightening us and sparing your time.
Thank you. Thank you. Really
Good evening, everyone. I would like to extend my gratitude to our chapter chairs from Flow Kanpur, Dr. Aarti Gupta, and from Flow Bhubaneswar, Dharitri Patnaik, for organizing this webinar for us. This gives us an immense chance to rethink how to use our money wisely and give a thought in investing while keeping focus on all the needs we have. Heartfelt gratitude to our lifelong sponsors, Lohia Corp, Valencia Socks, and RD Knox. Thank you, media, and I would like to thank all my special friends from Pan India for joining us for this event. Thank you. Stay safe.
Great.
Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Swaroop. It was such a wonderful time interacting and
Thank you so
your
much.
stories and snippets and how simply you put across all the concepts.
Yeah, it was
Really
like
appreciate. Thank you, Dharitri. Thank you for this opportunity. Thank you, Aarti. Really appreciate. Honor to be here.
Thank you so much, sir. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Sunita madam. Thank you so much. Dekha.
Thank you.
Namaskar.
Namaskar.
Thanks, Aarti.
Thanks. Lovely session. Thanks for connecting.
Thanks, Aarti and Dharitri, for this wonderful session on financial literacy. We need more of it because Mr. Swaroop was keeping on telling in the next session, if you call me, then I will tell this. And it is needed actually for women like us. Thank you, everyone.
Aarti is the guru.
Yes, absolutely.
I've been like kind of whichever woman at whatever age I meet, I feel I tell them like what he says is absolutely right. You need to have money in your name. You need to know where it's being invested. So
Absolutely.